Good evening. I'm glad everyone's here so you can hear what's really happening and get a taste of what's going on. Like the gardeners, the things that they said did also happen in Orange Cove, but we're experiencing something a little bit different that people are not aware of. Once they realize it's going on, they're appalled that we're in the United States. The voters in Orange Cove have been violated and taking their right of vote away for approximately 25 years. When an organized group that came to steal what we call the absentee vote. And how they would do it, they would have people to register, and then they would automatically have the absentee ballot to come to their home, violating the freedom of choice to say, do you want to go to the polls? So when they have absentee ballots, the election department will do a precinct printout, and they will tell you on there what day the ballots are going to be coming to the homes. Then that organized group that has an elected official that is involved, that's been there for 25 years, works hand in hand with this group. That's why he's been there 25 years. Then the ballots come to the homes. This organized group will then go knock on the doors, and usually at night, or if it's older people during the day, they'll knock on the doors, and they don't really ask, may I come in? They just go in. Because this is the reports that this is the data and the reports that we've gotten back. And once they get inside, if you have a couple of men that say, where's your ballot and how are you going to vote? There is a tremendous amount of fear, intimidation, and manipulation that goes on inside that home. People are desperately afraid and they won't say anything. That's why we've had a hard time with it coming forward, because people are afraid to say that this happened to them. So once the ballots are opened, then the people that's inside the house intimidates them, like, who are you going to vote for? And they start proceeding to point, or we've gotten reports back that they've actually voted the ballot for them, had them to sign the ballot, and years ago, 25 years ago, they'd mail it themselves. The very first time that I became aware of this was in 1986, in the 80s. And what this group did at that time, which is alarming, and there was pictures in the local newspaper at that time, is that people would get their absentee ballots, they would go to a garage in a home, and you could just see them going to this garage, and here this group was put together. They'd go in there, vote their ballots for them, and these people then would walk them back to City Hall. And this is a fact that came out in the Orange Cove Mountain Times in 1986, in that election. So at that point in time, we knew that the voters were being violated, the people were being intimidated, and they wouldn't say anything for the fear of losing either their life or their family being threatened or things of that nature. So this is something that what you had heard just recently happen has been going on in Orange Cove for many years. And that's why we know that the right of the voters is being taken away. The organized groups what they really do is, on election day, there's another item that they do. On election day, they call the people and they even bring them in. They'll stand out and kind of intimidate, and we've had several people here that have been poll watchers for Orange Cove. They would intimidate the people before they even get into the polls. But at this last election, we had this elected official that had the brazenness to walk somebody into a precinct booth and start pointing where to vote. Then at that point in time, because we've had such irregularities and discrepancies within our voting in Orange Cove, the election department was nice enough to send down the election fraud department, and have for several years, but nothing has been done. And this particular individual, Mr. Tom Kiros from the state voter fraud department, he witnessed this. He saw that what was happening, and he had to tell him, you cannot be doing that. But however, there was no charges, no report, nothing was ever done. And also to the fact that there was electioneering going on. So we've had crime after crime after crime, but there's nobody doing anything about it. And here you say how this is how elections are lost. This is how it's being lost in the city of Orange Cove. I feel, I've been in Orange Cove all my life, and I've watched the process. I love America. I love the voting. I'm very much of a patriotic person, and we have the best country there is. but yet we're being violated with people having their rights taken away. They do not have the opportunity to say, this is a person I want to vote for. And also, a lot of the majority of the city is Hispanic, and they will have a person that would help them. However, the flyers that were given to have them to vote, they couldn't read them. So they were just being told by their finger how to point when they go into the homes. And then they would even give them a stamp, and they would email them for them. Today, that is illegal, and if that's caught, then they're supposed to be prosecuted or something to that nature. But at this point in time, that hasn't been done either. So I just want to say I'm really glad that we're taking notice that this is actually happening in our state and across the nation, because we are truly America, where it should be free and everybody should have the right to cast their vote the way they want it. It should not be stolen, and it should not be raped from them. And I feel in my heart that's what's been happening in the city of Orange Cove for way too long, and nothing's really been done. So I like to thank the group that put this together so we can bring an awareness that it is happening. It's not something you talk about, no, it's not happening. When you come into Orange Cove and you want to sit and see the voter on election day, this is exactly what's happened. But you have to remember that the election day in Orange Cove will not be November. It's the day that the absentee ballots are mailed out from the election department. Once those hit the homes, and that's all through 3 weeks prior to election, that's when it happens. That's when the voters are being, the doors are being knocked on, the absentee vote. And they're being knocked on, and that's whenever it's taken. And then that's how they have been able to control the vote. Because when they did, they would have them to vote it, the organized group would have them to vote their ballot or vote it for them, seal it, so they knew how to control that vote. They'd also had bragged about, we know we have X amount of votes. How can you brag about knowing X amount of votes if you did not control the vote or have it something, and strictly on the absentees? If you look through the history of Orange Cove, the elections are really won in the absentee ballot. The poll is, even though we've had, not until this last election, we usually have a large percentage of people out voting at the polls, but that is not the majority of the percentage. So we have a great severe problem in the city of Orange Cove that I believe that's been happening for over 25 years, and nobody really could believe that it's actually happening. So I just want to bring that awareness to you. But we must realize that the state knows about it. Our Fresno County Election Department knows about it. We have yet been able to do anything. People are saying, yes, they're afraid to speak, but when are we going to be able to say enough is enough? When are we going to say that we're not going to allow this to be happening? When are we going to have the law enforcement? When are we going to have the teams that say, we can do something about this? It's like, if we don't, our rights will be violated, taken away, and one day we will not have the freedom to vote. It's gradually just creeping in. And what I wanted to say is when this state elected official, wasn't elected official, excuse me, with the state employee from the voter fraud division, when he came and the voters were lining up to vote, whenever this elected official that works hand in hand with this organized crime came to the polling place, this employee of the state walked right up to him, and Charlie Waters saw him, greeted that elected official with a handshake and a hug. And this gentleman had been involved with organized crime, and I said, Organized Control Committee, so I thought, what's wrong with this picture? Something is too friendly somewhere, somehow. So it gave all of us a real eerie feeling that there was more behind the scenes than what meets the eye. We want to have somebody that works for our state, that is a neutral party, that knows what they're doing, knows the laws, knows how to get it done, and don't sit back, stand off, or shut up. They need to really get off the grid. So I say, what's wrong with that picture, if that's happening? There may be more of little orange coves around that we're not aware of. And so this is what we're all facing, but until we gather together and say enough is enough, that we have to say to ourselves, will justice be done? Can justice be done? When? and when we the people say in a loud, clear voice and sound the alarm that righteousness and justice must rule. Thank you for your time. Excuse me, yes?
In that environment, how does it make you Mayor Pro-Tem?
Environment like the town, I've been there all my life. It's a population of 10,000. I've been involved with the schools, the civic groups, Chamber of Commerce, just everything that there is. And so being there, everybody's, you know, my friend. Color does not make a difference. Being Hispanic doesn't, I mean, to me. So I just grew up in a large Hispanic group, and they're my friends. They're my friends and they're my greatest allies. And so I think I was probably one of the biggest shocks that this white little lady was elected 4 years ago. They didn't know what they were going to get. Yes, sir. Is that what he had also?
We're going to get to that in just a second. Just a couple more questions because we don't really have it's not really a questions and answers night.
Yes. How about those of us who are
We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that one in a minute.
I think Mr. Waters.
Well, you're way ahead of time again.
I think they're going to teach and train us. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. 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 And they're going to do that and show you tonight because we do need to be educated because if you don't know what you're looking for or are prompted, things can just go and happen. Because a lot of times, I experienced this last election where they didn't really, you know, a person brought in absentee ballots in that 4 or 5 and they said there's a family member. How do we know it was a family member? That wasn't even asked of them, was it a family member? So I think there's a lot of discrepancies at that point. There's a form of discrimination, harassment. So.
No.
I think that you guys should address that. I'm not.
Actually, we can't do that within 100 feet. And Victor might clear that up when he gets up. The question is, can you shoot video somebody that, look, those guys can get away with voter intimidation, but they're not going to let me get away with voter intimidation. So shooting video, I think that's out of the picture. We've got some answers for you. We're going to get to that in a little bit. But let's give it up for Glenda Hill. Thanks for that.